Welcome into this segment of Behind the Pen presented by MostValuablePodcast.com. If you want to listen to the full podcast, go to blogtalkradio.com/MostValuablePodcast. Also, we're on iTunes, so check us out there as well. Thank you all for listening as always, and enjoy the show. Here we are, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, we're going to end the conversation there. Chicago Bulls, drop a like and a comment down below if you could. If you're on YouTube, we're going to move on now to our final conversation. Dave Oster, you've been the man for coming on to Behind the Pen this week to talk Bears and Bulls. We're going to move on to Major League Baseball conversation because it's already May 18th.
It kind of snuck up on us. The season's been going on for a while.
Seriously, it's about 40 games in now. And once this podcast is posted, I assume that, more games will be played. I think that's how the world works as days go by and games played. But I just wanted to have the conversation with you a little bit. We're going to take some time now to discuss some surprises in Major League Baseball. And I'd like to throw it out to you first. Who's your biggest surprise so far about 40 games in?
Sure. My biggest surprise is the Yankees. For those of you who know me from the fast break, I'm a fan of the rebuild. I'm a fan of the process. I'm a fan of bringing in young talent to turn over a roster. And what the Yankees have done, and in a time frame they've done it, is shocking. They were a team who kind of went all in on young guys, and these young guys are absolutely crushing the ball for them. Honestly, did you see them coming up and putting down as many wins as they have this season?
Well, I think that in today's Major League Baseball, you expect kind of this transition to happen with teams trying to rebuild. You rely on the young players, you really rely on the draft, and suddenly, and this is the case for the Yankees, if you have quality young players, they can make an impact for you immediately. And that's what we're seeing with this Yankees lineup. I mean, Aaron Judge is third in Major League Baseball in terms of WAR.
The ball.
I mean, he's killing it. He is absolutely killing it.
14 home runs already. I mean,
he's got a 1.129 OPS. I mean, this guy's unreal.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at the major, I think the Yankees are a very good example. I mean, they have...
Doesn't hurt that he's built like a truck. He's like 6'8", and, just shy of 300.
Nice. Absolutely, it must be nice. But when you're looking, like I said, in the modern day NBA, I'm still talking about a previous segment. Yeah, we're looking, though, this Yankees team, you talked about it. I mean, they made a move last year at the deadline. They did it right. They traded Andrew Miller, and they got Chapman. And then they re-signed Chapman this offseason. And they were able to...
What a rental that was.
Right. Well,
it's a win-win rental.
Right, absolutely. Chapman got his ring. The Yankees got Clint Frazier and Gleyber Torres in the two deals that they were able to make, along with some other quality prospects. And when you look at it right now, Starlin Castro's killing it. And we don't want to spend too much time on the Yankees right now, but they have Gary Sanchez, who's just, a guy who... last year was crushing the ball, and then of course Aaron Hicks and Aaron Judge. Guys, that's definitely the team that I would start with for sure.
Honestly, kind of one of the things that gets me is like the unspoken guy of Gardner, because he's been around forever for this team, and he was always that guy who was like, he's like a C+ guy. He's not going to be the guy who stands out and leads this team, but he's always there. He's always consistent, and he's always doing his job. And I think there's a lot to be said for his consistency and helping this team transition from where they were like 8 years ago to where they are now, and making sure that there was never like a dip off in the clubhouse, making sure that the standards were kind of known throughout.
I'm looking at the Colorado Rockies now, because going in, we knew that this team was going to have a pretty dangerous lineup. I mean, from third to first, you have Arenado, Trevor Story, DJ LeMahieu, and Mark Reynolds. I mean, that's power. And plus Ian Desmond, if he's when he's healthy. Trevor Story hurt now. However, when you look at that lineup from just strictly in the infield, and then you go from left to right, Parra, Blackman, and Carlos Gonzalez. I mean, you kidding me? This is quality across the board, 1 through 9. And,
it doesn't hurt that, you're playing Colorado and the ball travels.
Everything's going to be exaggerated. Numbers are going to be exaggerated. Nolan Arenado, potential MVP candidate. And then you really, that was it, right? That was one of the reasons why Colorado could be among the teams in the conversation, at least being competitive this year. And then all of a sudden you have guys stepping up in the rotation, and something that the Rockies haven't seen really in years in their starting rotation.
Their last stud has been so long ago, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably missing...
That's what, Jimenez?
Jorge De La Rosa, honestly, comes up to mind, and that was really... I mean, I'm probably missing someone, but that's the one guy that sticks out to me. Tyler Chatwood, Tyler Anderson, the Tyler guys, starting off a little slow, but they're quality pieces. Senzatella, this guy has been unreal to start the season. Antonio Senzatella, a 22-year-old pitcher, has really been quality for the Rockies. And you know what? They suffered Chad Bettis, who unfortunately is dealing with cancer
Yeah,
My goodness.
what a story.
And that's something that's terrible. It's awful. But this Rockies team right now is pretty competitive. They're actually in first place there in the National League West.
And honestly, the thing that kind of pulls it all together is the fact that they're doing it on both sides. You see Colorado and everybody, like, to a lot of average MLB fans, it's Colorado up. They're going to crush the ball because the altitude. They've always been a hitting team. And like you said, the pitching has really balanced out this year. And honestly, the biggest thing that I see on this pitching staff is the fact that they've got a reliable closer. And the value of a reliable closer in today's MLB, you know what it is because it won you a World Series.
Right, and you're talking about the Cubs. They made an effort to go get a closer in Wade Davis to replace Chapman, and so far it's been working. Though the Cubs, by the way, since you brought them up, have been kind of underwhelming. But they just came off a sweep against the Cincinnati Reds, who have actually impressed many this season. I mean, they got some quality pieces working there. Still a young team. Eugenio Suarez is one, and he's one quality. I think he's one of the top 15 players in WAR too, to his credit. So that's good for the Reds. I don't really like the Reds. I'm just saying. But the Cubs right now, I think the biggest concern has to rely on their starting pitching. They don't have a fifth starter. They're throwing out Eddie Butler now. Jake Arrieta is having velocity issues. He's given up 8 home runs this year, 7 of which have come off of an off-speed pitch that he threw. So that's something to concern. His velocity is down, and he's on the last year of his contract. Also, John Lackey's on his last year of his contract.
Yeah, so you've got a team who was at the top of their game last year. You're getting a little bit of a struggle from the pitching staff.
2 games over 500 right now.
And honestly, have they hit the panic? They're not quite hitting the panic button now. There's still plenty of time this season. But if you don't see some progression out of the pitching staff, getting back to where they should be, I can see them being one of the biggest movers in this trade deadline. They're going to try to bring in some better pitching talent.
They're going to be involved.
Fill out
sure.
the back of that, 3, 4, 5 if possible. And I still think that they've just got such a crazy young farm system built into this team that they did the right way when they rebuilt. And I think they've got enough pieces to move that they're not going to sacrifice too much when it comes to getting themselves another pitching arm. So I think that they're going to move a name that I think it's hard to say, but my odd man out right now is Schwarber. But still, even if he's doing good for you, you're moving to DH. You've got plenty of guys in the outfield who are better, well-rounded players than he is.
Especially defensively. He's the second worst defensive fielder in baseball
Lord.
right now. But yeah, I mean, Schwarber was just a name. I'm not sure how serious his name is going to come up.
But as the season goes on, you have to keep that in mind.
Those are names, and you mentioned
people will get moved.
Of course, and that's one of the things. When going into a rebuild, you have to stockpile players, and it was positional players that Epstein made a point in acquiring, and that allows you to acquire pitching down the road. You can sign them in free agency. You can acquire them through trade via the position players that you stockpiled. So the Cubs will be okay. I'm hoping. I'm sweating over here.
Yeah, it's still early.
Fine.
You got to keep.
They'll be fine.
I don't want to overreact this.
Yeah, so the Cubs are competitive. Obviously, they're going to be a part of the conversation in the NL Central. But going over to the American League Central, and I want to look at the Minnesota Twins a little bit because they sort of had a similar situation as the Cubs, trying to rebuild themselves through acquiring and putting a lot of stock in position players and high draft picks. I mean, Miguel Sano, Eddie Rosario, Byron Buxton, Max Kepler, those guys come to mind immediately. Irvin Santana this season has been an ace that has allowed the Minnesota Twins to stay in contention in the American League Central. They're in first place right now, 19-17. Of course, it's very early, and we assume that the Twins are going to come back to earth, but they're worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, it is. Again, we're talking about surprises quarter way into the season, and they are a surprise leading.
That rotation, though. Hector Santiago, Phil Hughes. Jose Barrios, though, young pitcher with expectations.
It's one of those situations where nothing on their team outside of one player really stands out. No one on the team is even hitting over 300. It's a very interesting and timely hitting situation. Their games are very close usually. I think they're for a team that is over 500, they have one of the thinnest margins for their wins. So it's kind of interesting to see. They're always exciting to watch. Take that away for what it's worth.
I think it's nice to see that the young players are finally starting to bruise for the Twins. Because,
that's true.
Boy, Twins fans the last 2 years have had to watch some bad baseball. Couple more. I know I have another one. Do you have another one that you want to talk about a little bit?
You go with yours.
Okay, because I'm going to start with not the Detroit Tigers. I'm sorry, Tigers fans. I teased you a little bit there. The Tampa Bay Rays, because I bring them up. I'm not sure how seriously they are in terms of playoff contenders this season. The American League, my gosh, it is so competitive. I mean, the Blue Jays we expected to come into the season as legitimate playoff threats or possibly a wild card contender, and they're in last place right now. And with the Rays, they play a role in this market this offseason because they have so much quality in terms of, well, pitchers right now that have value and that they could get into as a small market team. They could acquire, pieces that could fit them later on down the road. But when you look at their rotation, and I mentioned the pitchers, it's Chris Archer and Jake Odorizzi. I think those two guys are among it, and Alex Cobb as well.
Yeah.
They could be a part of the conversation in trade talks. But
I think Archer's the guy with the target on his back.
Probably.
If they continue to keep tallying up losses, and the thing is, they're such a boom and bust team because they are the second best team at home runs and in the American League. They have 56 total right now. And it's such a crazy thing to think that a team that's positive in run differential and has that many home runs is under 500. It's like there's something not clicking there, right?
That's the way baseball is sometimes. It's a funny game. It's a really funny game. But shout out Corey Dickerson. The guy's absolutely destroying the baseball this season. I want to run through some numbers a little bit, and then we can end this podcast because it's really interesting to me now that we're about a month and a half, 2 months into the season, and we could actually look at tangible stats because in April, everybody says, it's early. It's April. It's only April. Now we're getting, into the nitty-gritty. June's coming up, and this is when it's starting to get serious. Teams are going to be really interested. Trade talks are going to start picking up. Obviously, in July, the All-Star break, and then the trade deadline at the end of the month. Boy, it's starting to get fun, but I want to... all right. All right, because baseball obviously is starting to take a back seat to the higher impact sports, football and basketball. The pace of play, obviously a concern. However, I think baseball is being saved by these young players in the game, guys who stand out. Corey Seager, one of the many. Chris Bryant, one of the many. But Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, I want to talk a little bit about those two because Mike Trout, modern day Mickey Mantle. You kidding me?
It's just everything.
He is. If you're going to build a baseball player, that's him.
Yeah. No. There's not a single better all around player than him. And what's been crazy is it's been from the get go. He was one of those guys who came into the league so young, and we watched him succeed early on. And it was like, is this guy for real? No. He's going to come back to reality sooner or later. And he just keeps continuing to play at the top level every single year.
Yeah, debuted in 2011. My goodness, he's been in the league for that long already.
Yeah.
When he was 19.
Right?
When he was 19, he played 40 games with the Angels, and they knew. And can you imagine the haul the Angels could get if they decided to trade him? Obviously, you're not going to. He's the best player in the history of the game.
No, but
so
trying to put a value on that. Yeah.
Right. It would probably, if you want to talk about value in terms of the Chicago Cubs, just because I'm more familiar with this team, it would probably start with Schwarber, Baez, and maybe Eloy Jimenez. Honestly, that just gets you a seat at the table, and that's how serious. That's probably not even enough.
Yeah,
that's probably not even.
It's not enough.
Baez is probably going to be included in that one. That's just crazy.
Yeah, no.
Crazy. Looking at Mike Trout's numbers, 341 with a 1.193 OPS in 132 at bats. That's nuts.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and the guy's insane. 8 stolen bases. He got 13 home runs as well. He's leading the Major League Baseball in WAR at 2.9. Who's right behind him? It's Bryce Harper. He's got a WAR at 2.6. The guy's got a 1.202 OPS. That guy's coming off a terrible season last year for his standards, and he is absolutely crushing the ball. 365 average. It's
awesome
so
to see some fight back. It's awesome to see some fight and some aggressiveness back on the field, not in the clubhouse, not in the bench area. That was the thing with him. It was they got that frustration because they weren't succeeding early on last year. And you watch Bryce Harper I felt like he put it on his own shoulders and he shouldn't have. And this year, it just seems like he's going out there, he's playing a little bit more carefree, and he's just killing the ball.
And for Bryce Harper, a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, the offseason going into 2 years ago. So I'm sorry if I jumbled it up there. But anyway, he made it an effort to put on the pounds and add that fact to his game where, okay, we're going to rely on his power, and he crushed it. I'm going to look up his stats now in a second, but he was just murdering the ball. He had, I forget how many home runs that season. But speaking of players that are having a comeback type of year, Dallas Keuchel, right, struggled last season. And now he's stepping up this year with a 1.84 ERA and a .86 WHIP. right? In 63 2/3 innings for the Houston Texans. My gosh, I've been doing that all day here behind the pen. But it's the Astros 29-12 off to a scorching hot start there in the American League West. We assumed that the Astros were going to be this good.
Yeah, I think it's been the writing on the wall. They were the trendy pick last year for who's your dark horse to come out and go for it. We all kind of thought they'd be close, and this year they're just on fire to start the season. And I don't think it's fake. I don't think they're going to cool off that much. I think what they have built here is awesome, and I think they're even a team that's probably going to go out and be a spender at the trade deadline and try to add on, an extra cherry on top.
Okay, so I got the Bryce Harper numbers. It was his MVP season in 2015 when he was 22 years old. He added like 15, 20 pounds in the offseason, led the National League in home runs with 42, led the National League in run scores with 118, led the National League in on-base percentage, slugging, OPS, and OPS+. He was an all-star, and he was an MVP, and he was a silver slugger. I mean, you kidding me? At 22 years old, this is Bryce Harper taking over the league.
Man does it all.
All right, I'm going to end it with that. It was so fun to have you on, Dave.
Yeah,
thank you so much for jumping on. We talk Bears, Bulls, and Major League Baseball in this edition of Most Valuable Podcast, brought to you by, this is Behind the Pen, so Behind the Pen was brought to you by Most Valuable Podcast. But guys, thank you so much for sticking around. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, the full-length podcast can be found there on mostvaluablepodcast.com and blogtalkradio.com/Behind the Pen. YouTube. Thank you guys. Love the support every single week. Love the feedback, the sharing, the commenting. Love having the conversations. Love reading them. Love the feedback. I can't say that enough. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. Man, we're shooting for 10K. Like, this is serious.
Oh, it's going down. Yeah.
Yeah, this is happening.
Actually going up.
Yeah. So always, if you enjoyed listening to Dave's voice, because I know I enjoyed having him on, check out the Fast Break podcast where he posts a podcast or he's a part of the podcast every single week. They talk basketball. It was a pleasure having you on, Dave. One more time.
Thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This has been another edition of Behind the Pen. My name is Mike Rankin. As always, guys, we will see you all next time. Thank you guys for sticking around for this segment of Behind the Pen. If you want more Most Valuable Podcast content, click on the video up above, because I don't know why you wouldn't want to keep listening to our voices every day. But again, guys, thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate you.